This is Jarrod Horak, and in this video I'm going to do an early Travers preview. Looks like we have an 8-horse field right now, a couple weeks to go to the Travers. Now, if you're interested in my Del full cards, you can head on over to the runawayhorse.com, go over to my sales page. Every day Del runs, I have the full cards covered, and you can get more information there if you want to purchase individual cards, weekly, weekend packages, or the entire meet. runawayhorse.com on my sales page. If you're interested in reading my Del and Saratoga handicapping articles, head on over to todaysracingdigest.com. And on that website, all summer long, I've been posting handicapping articles from Del Saratoga. I just updated my top 3-year-old rankings. I do some stakes recaps for big races like the Haskell and some other races as well. So you can go over to todaysracingdigest.com to read all of my handicapping articles. If you're interested in bonus free selections, head on over to horseracingnation.com. I've done a daily best bets blog there many years. And on the front page in the handicapping section, you can find my daily best bet at horseracingnation.com. And now we're going to talk about the 8-horse field in the Travers, or at least as of today. And today is Friday, August 11th, and the Travers will be run on Saturday, August 26th. So we're about 15 days out from the Travers now, and we have a solid field of 8 at this point, and the winners of all 3 Triple Crown races are supposed to be in the mix as well. And we'll just go through these horses in alphabetical order quickly, and then I'll just talk about them again. Now, Arcangelo, Javier Castellano will ride. Now, he had his choice to ride Mage or Arcangelo. He rode Mage to victory in the Kentucky Derby, Arcangelo in the Belmont Stakes, and he decided to ride Arcangelo in the Travers Stakes. Now, Disarm will have Rosario aboard. Forte, Irad Ortiz Jr. Mage will be reconnected with Luis Saez. Now, he did ride him in Florida when he finished finished second in the Florida Derby. Luis Saez was aboard. National Treasure, your Preakness winner. He went wire to wire, controlling the pace that day under John Velazquez. And then last time he ran in the Belmont Stakes, he didn't run quite as well. Reincarnate for trainer Bob Baffert. He has early pressing speed. Juan Hernandez will ride. Scotland for trainer Bill Mott. Junior Alvarado will be the pilot. And then Tapit Trice. Luis Saez has been riding him, but he defects and he jumps over to Mage. So Tapit Trice doesn't have a rider at this time. Some other horses that could have gone in the Travers, but they decided not to. Skinner was the big name, John Sheriff's trainee on the West Coast. He was a highly regarded horse heading into the Kentucky Derby after finishing 3rd in the Santa Anita Derby. And then he got sick and he scratched out of the Kentucky Derby, and he's only run once since then. He finished 2nd in the Los Al Derby. He was under consideration for the Travers, but John Sheriff said that he will remain in Southern California, and he's going to point to the Pacific Classic. And a lot of decent 3-year-olds seem to be pointing to the Pacific Classic, and I'll be doing that video as well in September for the Pacific Classic. It looks like we're going to have Arabian Night for trainer Bob Baffert, Go Rocket Ride, the winner of the Haskell Stakes. So some decent 3-year-olds are pointing to the Pacific Classic against older company this year. We'll have to see how they handle that jump up in class facing older for the first time. But now back to the Travers horses. And Arcangelo, he's been training well. He had a great trip in the Belmont Stakes. He was able to save all the ground. Horses like Forte and Tapit Trice, they were losing ground. Throughout that race, Arcangelo was able to save all the ground and have the best trip, get the run and the jump on the closers, and win by a length and a half. So he ran a quality race there. He was getting tired at the end, but that was a 1.5-mile race. Cutting back to a 1.25 miles, he won the Peter Pan at 1.125 miles prior to the Belmont Stakes. So he's one that's he's really improved in a short time. He's looking excellent in the mornings, and it's a good sign that Javier Castellano chose him over Mage, and it was a tough decision. But Arcangelo doesn't have to come from the clouds. He's one that he does like to come from off the pace, but he can stay within hailing distance of the leaders, and that could be key because some of the late runners are definitely going to be at the mercy of the pace like Mage. Now, Disarm, he's one that he just didn't get any pace help in that Jim Dandy last time. I picked him as a value top choice. I thought maybe he could get a little bit closer to the pace like he did when he won the Matt win, but he was just back to railing from off the pace again. And I think the 1.25 mile distance helps, and if he can get some pace help, I think a horse like Disarm can definitely at least hit the board in the Travers Stakes at a price. Now, Forte, He's one that obviously the controversial victory in the Jim Dandy. He didn't have a running room there. The front runner, Saudi Crown, was controlling the pace. It was a short field, and Angel of Empire was on the outside, and Forte was just hemmed in the whole way. Then in the stretch, he thought that Irad Ortiz Jr. thought that maybe Saudi Crown will come off the rail and he would be able to scoot up the rail, but there wasn't any room inside at that time. And then he tried to bully his way between horses and make himself a little bit of running room there. And just as he did that, that's when Saudi Crown drifted out, and then it was just a mess of a stretch run, really. But Forte was able to get the job done by a nose. It was an inquiry, no change was made, and Forte won the Jim Dandy. And he's a 4-time Grade 1 winner. He was your 2-year-old champion. He's won 3 graded stakes this year: the Fountain of Youth, the Florida Derby, and also the Jim Dandy. And then he was second in the Belmont Stakes, just finishing a nose in front of his stablemate Tapit Trice. That was his first start in 10 weeks, first start after a foot bruise, and then he got that key prep in the Jim Dandy, and he figures to move forward. He wore blinkers for the first time last time, and he's one that he does have some positional speed, so I think he can work out a good trip. But I think Ortiz this time doesn't want to get stuck inside, because he's facing better horses here and a lot of quality in this race, and he doesn't want to have take any chances. I think he wants to probably have more of a clean trip, tracking the pace, maybe in the middle or towards the outside. Now, Mage, he ran a quality race last time out in the Haskell Stakes, and that was his first start since the Preakness. Now, in the Kentucky Derby, he got tons of pace help. In the Preakness Stakes, he got no pace help whatsoever. Then they decided to give him a break. They brought him back in the Haskell Stakes, but they said the Haskell was only serving as a prep for the Travers Stakes. And he ran a good race, though. He was able to Go Rocket Rides just had a great tactical trip, got the jump. Mage made a nice run in the stretch, and he ended up finishing a clear second. So now Mage really training well. Luis Saez is going to ride. He is at the mercy of the pace. He's going to need some pace help, but he appears to be, after that great prep race he got in the Haskell, sitting on a peak performance in that Travers Stakes. Now, National Treasure is going to have to bounce back. The Preakness wasn't a strong race, and he was just able to get out there and control the pace, and he just beat Blazing Sevens. And Mage was at a big disadvantage there, coming back in 2 weeks in a paceless race. And National Treasure stole that race, and he had to prove in the Belmont Stakes that he could do that again. But actually, in the Belmont Stakes at 1.5 miles, the pace was quicker, and he just wasn't able to see out the distance. He was in front for a long time. He faded to 6th in the stretch, and now cutting back in distance certainly helps him. He should be all over the pace under John Velazquez. So looking at the Travers pace, it looks like it's going to be one of the 2 stablemates setting the pace: National Treasure or Reincarnate. And Reincarnate doesn't need the lead, or National Treasure doesn't need the lead, but both of them are capable of setting the pace, and they're not going to duel on the lead. One of them's going to set the pace, one of them's going to track the pace. Juan Hernandez on Reincarnate, he was able to get out there and steal the Los Alamitos Derby, just no speed whatsoever. Skinner was at a big disadvantage there from off the pace, and he ended up finishing second. So now Reincarnate's going to have to step it up. He was cooked on a pace duel in the Kentucky Derby. He hit the board in some races like the Rebel and Arkansas Derby earlier this year. He won the Sham Stakes. So he's got some stakes ability, but he's got to step up his game a bit. And if he probably would like to get out there and control the pace. We'll see which one does. As I said, National Treasure, Reincarnate. I'm sure Bob Effort's going to come up with a plan maybe after the post draw and see how everything lays out in the final composition of the field, exactly how he would like to see it play out. But they are the 2 most likely pace setters in the Travers. Scotland, last time he got out there and up won the pace, stepping up to face Stakes Company in the restricted Curlin Stakes at 1.1 miles at Saratoga, a local prep for the Travers. And he was impressive that day for trainer Bill Mott. Junior Alvarado was his rider, and he's got some running style versatility, but he's facing some solid horses in this race. He's the Triple Crown Series winners, and you have Reincarnate, and, so he's facing some decent horses. Tapit Trice, multiple stakes winner. So Scotland hasn't won a graded stakes yet, so he's going to have to step up his game a bit, but he's heading in the right direction. All of his races have been good, and he's one that at least rates a long shot look, probably stalking the pace in the Travers. And then Tapit Trice, he's one that it just seems like he peaked earlier this year. He was in such good form over the winter into early spring, when he just looked really good in the stretch in the Tampa Bay Derby, just mowing them down late. And then in the Bluegrass Stakes, in that Grade 1 race, the pace wasn't to his liking there. But from post one, Luis Saez was aboard that day, and he was able to get him into a good tactical position, and he made an early move. He went after Verifying, who had the tactical edge on him, and he was just able to have more stamina than that one, and he outfinished that foe. And then Blazing Sevens ended up finishing third that day. So Tapit, Trice, since then, Kentucky Derby, he didn't run his race in the Kentucky Derby. He was 7th of 18. It did set up for closers, and he didn't run his best race that day. The Belmont Stakes, he ran solid there. He had every chance, though. He just couldn't get the job done. He was just missing the runner-up spot in that race. He was stalking wide. He was within striking range throughout. He just couldn't go with Arcangelo, and then he couldn't quite hold off his stablemate Forte in the stretch. And then in the Haskell Stakes, he just was no threat. That kind of track really isn't conducive for a horse like him. He likes to rally from a bit off the pace, and the Monmouth main track doesn't favor closers. So I think the 1.25 mile distance certainly is going to be his friend in the Travers Stakes, but I don't know what kind of setup he's going to get. At least if you look at the composition of the field right now, you have two horses that can show speed, National Treasure, Reincarnate. You have horses like Forte, probably stalking the pace in Scotland, and then you have Arcangelo maybe near that group, and then you have late runners like Disarm, Mage, and Tapit, Trice. So I think the pace could be at least honest, but I don't think it's going to be suicidal at all. And Tapit, Trice is certainly going to need every advantage from a pace scenario if he expects to jump back into form. You got to figure if he doesn't run well here, maybe they're going to pull the plug on his 3-year-old season and just rest him up and try to bring him back as a 4-year-old. So that's my look at the Travers right now. Still a couple weeks to go, and I'll probably come back and do another preview next week, and then I'll do my Travers video a few days before that race. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like this horse racing content. And check out my full cards at therunawayrhorse.com on my sales page. Check out my free picks at Horse Racing Nation. And then check out my handicapping articles at todaysracingdigest.com. And until I see you next time, good luck at the races.